co-founder is building the central hub of the business future. We are starting with a 600 million crowd sale market today, but our final goal is the 130 billion VC investment market.
So welcome everyone to the Blockchain Speaker Series. I'm Mark Joseph. I'll be your host today, and today we'll be interviewing Justas Pikelis of the Monetha project. And they're doing some very exciting work in the payments and trustful payment space. And we'll get a chance to know Justas a little bit and get to know how he came into the work and how he formed his team and what their current stage of development is and what the work is looking like. And so welcome, Justas. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mark. This is a really exciting time for all to have in this crypto and ICO community listening to your podcast. I'm very hopeful that I will provide some useful information about our project.
Great, sure, me too. You know, we want to get a chance. You know, I think with a lot of the interviews, there might be the thought that, well, this stuff is all available on your FAQ and in your white paper and just on your home page. Really, a lot of it is. But I think that a lot of the folks in the YouTube investor community, particularly, and I think even in the wider investor community, really like to be able to hear from the folks behind the project. It really makes a difference, I find, for my own personal research of projects. And I think that that's going to become more and more prevalent in terms of investors. The avenues through which they get to know projects is to actually hear the folks talk about it. So I think it's so helpful.
I totally agree. You know, that was one of the problems with the kind of initial coin offerings where there weren't a lot of faces. There weren't a lot of transparency in terms of the founders. Now I think that it's unimaginable and not viable for an ICO to come up with no LinkedIn profiles and not to see any prior background. And I think this show is just perfect for that, for people to put the face behind the project and kind of feel out the whole thing.
And really get to know the team. So, okay, Justas, yeah, if you would be so kind as to talk a little bit about about your prior work experience that then led you to however it is that you became interested in the blockchain space, and how it is that you met your team and put it together, and how you guys have managed to do all of this hard work just recently. It's really quite recent. You've been, as far as I can see, you guys have done a lot of great work very quickly.
That is something that we really value in our the culture of Monetha is speed. We think that one thing that is mandatory in this market is to be fast, because the first mover actually wins here. And in regards to our history, myself, I've been entrepreneurial since I was a kid. I won't tell all the stories, of course, not like in the US. With baseball cards, we have like basketball cards in Europe, or soccer cards in Europe. But I've been entrepreneurial since the beginning, and never had like an urge to be an employee. And this led me to study entrepreneurship, because studying entrepreneurship is pretty strange concept to a lot of the people. It's still a lot of managemental studies and things like that. But I was lucky enough, in my country there was a university who established these kind of studies, and that's where I met my co-founder, Laurynas.
Laurynas.
So,
okay, great.
Yeah, he's the product lead. Like, I know he's probably going to be really mad at me because I'm going to say that, but he's a product genius, literally a guy who has been such a great help and such a great developer in me in terms of figuring out what the product might be, what may bring the most value to Ethereum community and to the Ether holders. So I met him about 4 years ago, a little bit more, I guess. So we both had different projects. Me, I had a project in robotics. My company was doing advertising with drones. So we were carrying advertising banners with drones in indoor spaces. We were the first company to do that safely indoors. Mine and Lorina's businesses were subsidized by European Union. We were working in the same co-working space. That's how we met each other, and how we clicked was because we had the same interest, which was payments. And later it became blockchain. So it was a very, very nice serendipity that happened in our friendship. And it turned out like that we were both free. Lorinas had exited his prior business. So he had free time to do a new company.
Was that
same here for me. And
the Edgeless? It looks like he worked with the Edgeless project, or the.
He was an investor in Edgeless project, but his company was called Wowto, and they were doing this really interesting concept of advertising, where they would stick a digital screen onto a car, and depending on their geolocation, they would display an advertising. So it was really interesting project, which was later, which later exited. And that's how we met, and we decided that we had such a big interest in payments, and when this whole opportunity arose of the ICO, we still were figuring out if we want to do an ICO, if we want to go the traditional venture capital way to raise money. But we decided to go the ICO route just because for a project like this, for cryptocurrency payments, you need evangelists. You need people who are...
Yeah, you need a community.
Really, a community, And what better way to do that when people invest their own money and say, I believe in this project.
Sure, they become stakeholders.
This is... Absolutely. This is the strongest voting power that could ever be. So we thought that this could be a great opportunity to, at the same moment, raise money to build a company and have evangelists and people who could bring the adoption to the market. So the only piece was missing was the technological mastermind. So just a small piece.
Yeah,
so,
right. Just that piece. Is that how do you say his name? Andre? I don't know how to say
Andre.
his name.
Yeah, Andre. We met him. We knew him a long time ago because he was such a. In Lithuania, he was a person who was probably the most demanded CTO. Everybody wanted to grab him, but he was working in a corporation called Atform. And he was a leader of 300 people, developer team. So he's really, as Lorinas, in my mind, he's a mastermind in product, and Andre is a mastermind at delivering the whole vision and understanding how to implement it technologically. So we just went to speak with him and said, hey, Andre, why don't you just quit your very high-paying job and join us, where you have to pay to work?
Yeah, because you guys self-funded the beginnings of your project, if I gather that correctly.
Correct, and that wasn't that small of an amount for us. We really invested a lot of money from our own pockets to deliver this. And Andre said, "Hey, guys, I really like the technology, like the energy," and he joined us. It was just the beginning of the 2017. So this is where our kind of core kind of team was created. Yeah, it is recent, but the thing is that we really value speed, and now it seems like we can actually balance it with the high quality work.
Seems like I'm guessing that the working relationships and the workflow and the work dynamic with this core team, it must be fairly, it must be an excellent fit for you guys to be putting things together so easily within such a short amount of time. And it sounds like you're having fun, so that sounds great.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing that if we wouldn't have fun, because at this moment, for the last, I would say, for the last 5 to 6 months, we've been working literally, Mark, I'm telling you, 24/7. But but that is something that is really a kind of camaraderie that is happening in this team, especially between the co-founders, is that we enjoy each other's company. We don't get on each other's nerves, which is surprising, having in mind the amount that we're spending together.
The hours, yeah.
But all is good at this road.
Sounds good, yeah. So let me ask you this: you said that you and Laurinus have shared an interest in the payments space, or for the payments industry, I guess it's called. I'm an outsider, and if you could talk a little bit about what it is in particular that a person can be, how it is that a person can be particularly interested in the payment space, because people can be passionate about a lot of human rights issues and other such social entrepreneurship type of thing. And you talked a little bit about creating stakeholders out of your investors, which I think is really important in terms of it isn't even the future sharing economy. It really is what the economy. We won't even be calling it the sharing economy. It's just going to be the economy now and going forward, and leveraging the wisdom and power of the crowd and making them and blurring the lines between customer and is so useful and important. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit about payments and why it is you came together in this space, what it is that's interesting to you.
That is kind of a common observance that we get from people who are just saying, how can you be passionate in this kind of thing? I'm passionate about fishing. I'm passionate about sports.
Right.
We're passionate about payments. We're passionate about payments and bringing really a trust and fairness to commerce. That is one of the things. Maybe it's hard to say that it's a passion of a domain, but it's more of a kind of a human. You mentioned about human rights. Maybe it's not to that big of a scale, but still we feel that a human right is to participate in fair commerce, and we don't believe that it's happening. And we don't believe that it's happening today. Yeah. One of the reasons is we have so many intermediaries that are unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Definitely unnecessary. We clog up the system in terms of people not getting paid when they should get paid. It should be easy. It should be as easy as passing the cash, which you get the cash instantly, but no cash. Okay.
Right.
But with mobile payments, it should be that easy. There shouldn't be that much of commission taken by banks.
There really shouldn't be. I agree.
We shouldn't be financing their buildings, their fancy suits, their trips, their yachts, all these things.
Right.
We believe that cutting this is really necessary. So that is where the passion comes from.
Okay.
So as we have this passion, we just have to direct it to a technological solution, and we 100% are confident that technological solution at this moment is definitely blockchain.
Sure, agreed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so me and Laurinus, we wanted to do that. It just was the one kind of a bottleneck of our vision. It was really hard to raise money if you're not in Silicon Valley. It is a hard thing.
Okay.
It is. If you're not in these startup hotspots like Singapore or London or Silicon Valley,
a Silicon Valley of Asia, or a Silicon Valley of the Middle East, or a Silicon Valley of Europe, sure.
Absolutely. And this is the reason why ICO brings a level playing field for anyone in the world. the people decide if your project is worthy of investing. It's not based on geographical things. So we wanted to do that. We had separate things what we were creating. But when ICO opportunity came in, as I mentioned, we tried to figure out whether we want to go the traditional route or the ICO route, and we decided that ICO makes a hell of a lot more sense at this moment. So this is how it manifested, and the opportunity arose, and we really, the whole serendipity, everything came in such a right time. As I mentioned, me and Laurinas had, we were free of our projects, and Andre joined us. That is how the whole thing came up.
Well, that's really nice to know. Well, there are many of us who are fans and consumers of news from the so-called YouTube skeptic community, and sorry, we have some family activities happening, and we're getting that under control just now. But
it's your fans.
Right, right. I'm a particular fan, and I have great interest in what kinds of education the YouTube skeptic community can provide, and they have really brought to light a lot of the lack of fairness in the financial sector, and how the intermediaries make up such an outrageous and really quite unbelievable proportion of nations' GDP. And I think we really are moving into a stage in humankind where the social consciousness does not value and appreciate the work that intermediaries are doing, given the level of compensation that they're receiving for this work. We really aren't appreciating that contribution, because what we really are finding is that there are much more important things to be. There's a lot more important work to be done going forward. So yeah, financing the yachts and the fancy cars, that was really sort of, I guess, an inevitable and unavoidable aspect of the process of the financial infrastructure to be able to bring humankind together so that commerce could take place. But we figured out some new. We've figured out some. There are some new tools that we've started working on, that you've started working on. So yeah, that's really nice to hear that's some of the reasoning behind what drives all of these hard hours, long hours of work with you and your team. So I really support you, and appreciate that you're doing that. Yeah.
So I think that it's nothing new. I think that this is coming a full circle. We used to have no intermediaries. I'm speaking about hundreds of years ago,
Right.
And we're just fixing the situation that the greed kind of created. And this is the one part of Monetha. This is the payments part of Monetha. But we really kind of think that our unique value proposition, something that we're bringing absolutely valuable to the table, is our decentralized trust and reputation system, which also has a mission of giving a playing field for all of the merchants. So for example, people speak about us. We actually got this from the community. We never really thought about it while we were building the project, because we were so technologically in depth, and we haven't thought about it in let's say, from a third person perspective, where one person said, his name is Alex. He said, guys, you are a mix between PayPal and Trustpilot on the Ethereum blockchain. So we were like, oh, we're gonna steal that. This is really good observation, where a decentralized trust and reputation system brings what Trustpilot brings to a decentralized platform. And usually, to go to Trustpilot, you either have to be super happy about about the service that was provided, or super angry about the service
Yeah.
that was provided. That's how you get incentivized to use Trustpilot. But here we connect it to payments, so
Yeah.
through
It's
smart contracts. Yeah, everything is being done automatically. So that's how a
right.
reputation for a merchant is really easy to build.
It's
And
baked
he
in.
doesn't, yeah, he doesn't need to go to a centralized marketplace, and we're not a marketplace. We just provide him the reputation online that he wouldn't need to go to Amazon and build it. And if he builds it on Amazon, he doesn't need to build it all over again in eBay. It's transferable, it's
It's
immutable, and
transferable. Okay. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. And you can, it's gonna be, trust me, Mark, it's gonna be, people are gonna kind of get and remember the Monetha logo and see that in the every footer of an independent website that someone is selling e-commerce, because that is going to be a universal reputation symbol. And if we can also bring an efficient payment processing with that, that is just, best of both worlds that we're trying to combine and juggle, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to the wide world.
Yeah, that's it's really, I can see how important it is to have the the reputation aspect baked in or built in to the purchasing and transaction activity, so that, as you described, it isn't necessary for a buyer or a seller to endeavor to go about a separate and additional activity of going on to any one of the kinds of Trustpilot types of review and reporting experience types of destinations, because it is an extra activity, and only those who are very upset or extremely happy, as you described, will go about taking the trouble to do that. So I think that's very useful. It's very important to have it seamless in that way, and also what you described as it being transferable. It's sort of it isn't platform or seller specific. It isn't Amazon specific or eBay specific or Alibaba specific or Dubizzle in the Middle East specific.
Correct.
It crosses all of sort of layers upon all of those sellers. So that's very strong.
Yeah, so that is like the best example. You're in China and you're familiar with the whole commerce, but for a person who maybe is very far away from China, right? For example, let's say United States, and he's looking for some kind of item, let's say a watch, right?
Yeah.
A watch that would be that a Chinese commerçant has, and he wants to buy, but he doesn't really know the merchant.
Yeah.
Therefore, he doesn't trust him. He doesn't know if the watch is going to be counterfeit, if it's going to be fake. But the price is great, and he sees the reviews on Monetha, which he knows that there is no way somebody can manipulate those reviews, and he can see this
important.
guy, this e-commerce merchant in China, he sells great watches. They're genuine. They have a great price, and he delivers on time. And he knows that there is no way that those reviews could have been fake. So there we are. He can actually save money, and the merchant also can save money by skipping all the fees that all these big platforms like Amazon or eBay ask for.
You know what? I think that's very useful. This sort of localization of the reliability and trustworthiness assessment process, or the information that's provided is it's some I'm not sure how to articulate it, but it's something along the lines of a standardization and internationalization which creates a comfort and trustworthiness that comes about due to the localization, because if you're able to utilize the information that's offered by the Monetha rating after having purchased something from somewhere within the United States, and then you're looking, as you described, to purchase something from China, well, the currently available user rating system on Taobao, for example, as has been known to take place on Amazon, on Taobao, it is notorious for having fake reviews. But even really, a lot of users in the United States really may not have any awareness of whether or not Taobao user reviews, or seller reviews is actually what
Correct.
it is, have
Absolutely.
any validity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for a merchant to build his reputation, he has to rely on a centralized marketplace and participate in that marketplace, whether he wants it or not. And there, for example, for him to sell on Alibaba, it's a race to the bottom. The one who has the lowest price wins, right? So for a merchant to squeeze his margins, we're trying to figure out how to help both of the parties, both of the market sides.
Yeah.
But we really want to help the merchants build their reputation and on the level playing field. I think that blockchain is just an amazing tool to make it happen.
Absolutely. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I might be seeing a particular merchant benefit that you may have described, and maybe that's why I'm sort of seeing it. But you've talked about how there's a possibility or a certainty based on your research and development of your project that there's a reduction in fees for merchants receiving payments. But what I'm also seeing is perhaps with the increased validity of the Monetha rating system over and above what is offered by something like Taobao's rating system, perhaps, okay, so right now what we're seeing with these kinds of seller platforms is a team that guarantees buyers, that offer a guarantee for buyers, which is built into the cost structure of the platform, which it translates into essentially higher seller fees, much higher seller fees, on the order of something like 10 times, I think. If you're looking at, I'm not sure what eBay and Amazon and all these intermediary seller platforms seller fees are currently, but I think it's more than 2 or 3% of the sale price. It's quite large. So if that is no longer necessary to be built into the cost structure, this is another way that merchants may benefit, is by simply being able to list their items and receive, to pay lower seller fees.
That is a great point, and we really thought about this, where we mentioned, we're trying to supply both sides of the market, and it's not an easy task, but we can actually focus on helping one side, which, as you just described, create a reputation for a decentralized reputation for a merchant. And if we can include that reputation into our efficient payment processing, we also help the other side by lowering, probably most likely lowering the item fees.
Yep. Yeah, that would be great. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I think you might need to educate me a little bit on the payment space, because I do have a certain skepticism about the value of the project in terms of the desire to offer reduced merchant fees for receiving payments, for merchants receiving payments. Now, all right. So is it something that there is an unavoidable and inescapable cost to receiving payments that we really aren't going to be able to completely eliminate, such that this project and the positioning that it seeks to achieve within the payment space actually is valid. And I want to question you on that, and it may be a challenge question. Because when it comes to blockchain space, that one of the fun, as far as I'm gathering, and I'm actually a lay person, I'm not an expert. I come from international business and psychology and mental health, so you may need to educate me on both aspects of blockchain and the payment space. But from what I gather, one of the most important and desirable, and one of the reasons why the blockchain is described as one of perhaps the most important invention in human history, is this idea that we really, other than these extremely low fees, although Bitcoin has some scaling issues at the moment, and there are fees that are can be a little bit larger than we would like, but generally speaking, the fees are immaterial, as they say in the accounting field. So why does Monetha offer a valid? Why is the value proposition of Monetha's positioning within the payment space, offering a 1.5% fee for merchants receiving payments? Why is that the case, that it's valid when, and you'll need to correct me and educate me, when there are, I believe, projects such as, and I'm not sure they really fit the description, but maybe Dash or NEM might offer a way for merchants to receive payments, or even Bitcoin. I mean, some stores, not in the United States so much, but internationally, are looking to accept Bitcoin. And so there must be something in the payment space when it comes to like merchants that if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great. If I have this question as a layperson, when I look at the project and I think, what's my next investment going to be? I'm sure others will. I'm guessing others might.
Yeah. So this is a really good question, and it really arises from the kind of a philosophy of it can be done today, right? You can send payments really cheaply. You just pay the gas price, right?
Yeah, right.
Through your transaction, but there is no universal and an elegant way to do that.
True.
There were some let's say commerce stores where you can, or retail stores where you can come in and they have a phone, right, where they say, generate their public key, and they say, you send me that amount of Bitcoin and I will receive it, and after half an hour, 40 minutes, come back if the transaction is confirmed,
right,
I will pass you the goods.
Yeah.
So there's as I mentioned, I really like this analogy where, I don't know, you probably remember this, but in early, let's say, or mid 90s, in order to connect to internet, you would have to do a lot of stuff, a lot of things that were, painful at the moment. Or if you would have a landline, somebody would call it and you would be connected to the internet, you would hear the sound of and that wasn't an elegant solution. And there comes all these startups, all these companies that try to make it easier for any person to do that. So for example, we can go even into the details of not only it being a very kind of rough way to transact money for a merchant, but a merchant, he would love to be open to the opportunity of receiving payments, of receiving Ethereum-based cryptocurrencies. He would love to do that, but then he has to go and exchange that, and there is no elegant solution where he could do that where we will provide an API with all these exchanges, where it will be really easy to do. So all these things, it can be done, let's say, only paying gas price, but it would be super hard to educate merchants and to tell that you'll have to do this and do that, and there is such a big learning curve that the adoption would just drop. And
Sure.
in addition to that, we also provide a decentralized trust and reputation system, which we feel the 1.5% is something that we already, we're doing tests and speaking with, doing interviews with merchants, and they're more than happy with this commission to have an elegant solution, to have a trustful, also a trustful value proposition to it.
Yeah,
I
that
hope
really
that
makes
answered your question.
Yeah, that makes that makes perfect sense. There really is a lot of commentators in the crypto space talk about how we are all very early. All of us investors and all of us startup founders. This is all very early, and what you described is very true in terms of adoption and usability. The reality is, while you can perform these transactions and while commerce can actually take place very cheaply, it isn't taking place. There has to be a way to facilitate the operations, and there has to be compensation, or basically it's operating income to power the systems that facilitate this, so that adoption can take place, and so that adequately usable user interfaces and customer-facing applications and merchant tools that are actually usable and can be implemented in various merchant can be what's the word, installed and incorporated into various merchant configurations, large and small. So certainly that is I guess what I was describing as the unavoidable and inescapable costs. But if the costs are utilized in a way that's so useful, and they are a great deal less, and there's the trustability functionality baked in, I can see now the value of the proposition. That's really strong.
That's a really good point that you made. Also user interface is really important. As I mentioned, anything that would, make sense for a simple, everyday merchant to say, okay, I heard about this crypto thing, about Bitcoin. Maybe now I'm hearing more, they're bending my ear with Ethereum, but he's not really familiar with the whole blockchain technology. He's not really familiar how he can receive payments. And if we can come with an elegant solution where he wouldn't have to have a huge learning curve to learn this.
So important.
This is our goal. Also our goal, and it really reflects in our company's culture, is being fair to the merchants and being fair to our investors. That's why we don't, plan to have and won't have a huge hard cap where there is just let's be honest. In the last few months, there has been a lot of greed in ICO market.
Could be
people
that's
thinking
really
it's a great way to raise money. Why not raise 200 million? Why not raise 150 million? It's where in the real world you would raise maybe 1 million, maybe 1.5, and there's a lot of greed.
For an 8-person team or something like what you guys have, or what, like, the EOS and Bancor team size is, the 150 and 200 million that they've is certainly it's concerning.
Of course, it's good for them, but it is concerning. It is concerning that it's creating some kind of bubble. Of course, it's creating an opportunity for people to speculate the tokens and all of that. But we kind of believe that we need the money, create the technology, to create the technology, and then everything comes after that. We're really hardcore on making the technology work, and then company, if the solution is great, the all the adoption will come inevitably. So
Sure.
this is a kind of a culture thing where we feel like the merchants should be treated fair, the investors should be treated fair. There are no hidden hard caps or contingencies that we can create tokens at any point of time.
I think a lot of folks will appreciate hearing that.
I think that it's about time to do that for all ICOs. People have to scan the ICOs, really pay attention to the smart contracts and the ICO conditions, and then decide whether they want to support the project or not.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to find out a little bit about? Let me take another look at the roadmap here. I think it might have been somewhere in the white paper I was reading about the budget, and something about how there is a stage of the project where it is going to be required that outreach of some sort. I don't know exactly what it'll be, digital marketing or sales and marketing, or how exactly you will be approaching and signing up, if that's the way to describe it, signing up merchants. Merchant acquisition is what you call it here in the white paper.
Correct.
Looks like a very healthy part of the budget is going, the 25% is going towards marketing and merchant acquisition and partnerships. And I would say I have a lot of appreciation for a team that understands the importance of not only having sound technology, but an adequate budget for actually getting it out there, because there are a lot of stories about excellent projects and technology that don't have adequate marketing and don't make it, and there's also a lot of stories about kind of crappy technology that has really strong marketing that does do very well. So that's good to see.
Yeah, we're trying to balance these both, and we really want to say that one of the advisors of ours, Sean Harper, who has had his payment technology acquired by Groupon. He has a significant knowledge in bringing the new payment technology and adoption, a big scale adoption. That is a person that helped us to understand this process and will help us throughout the whole process really significantly. It's the technology would be worthless if nobody would be using that.
Nobody hears about it. Sure.
Yeah, this is where Sean comes in, and he's really a significant help in our company.
Great. So, can you tell me what that actually looks like? Like how is it? What channels or avenues through which do you actually approach merchants, or is it something like just all digital marketing? Is it content strategy? How do merchants become aware? How do this? If you could talk a little bit about that, that's really interesting to me.
We really want to bring merchants close. We don't want to advertise or market them through, a kind of a distance between each other. We really want to hear, especially in this stage of point of time, we really want to speak with merchants, find out their needs, find out what they like and what they don't like about technology. This is really, really important to us. So one of the ways how we're going to do that is going to the website builder. There are a lot of chatbot website builders. For example, a really advanced one is Webs. That will be a shameless plug of getwebs.com. There are partners. They have a large number of e-commerce stores that they build through a chatbot. And this is where we can communicate with them, and they will do the communication of our product and educate the merchants about the product.
Fabulous.
And we really think that Facebook ads of join, install our Monetha plugin won't work as well as having a conversation with, these e-commerce platforms providers. So of course we're also looking at later. This is the early stages where it's not that scalable. It's more manual speaking and doing interviews and
Sure.
finding out and trying to get the best product that it's possible.
Yeah.
But in the later stages, it definitely will come to scalability of incorporating with platforms like Shopify. We're already doing that with WordPress, WooCommerce. So this is really important in the later stages as we find out the correct and the needs of merchants.
Excellent. Let's see. Now, Justas, let's see. We usually do just about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. So this has been a great talk. I think that the audience, I've seen you guys have already gotten started doing some really nice spots on YouTube. The short videos. Somebody, you have a skilled videographer who's doing well for you. I liked what I've seen. And we'll look to get this published in the coming days. And is there anything else that you think that we should talk about today?
I guess, besides saying that, if the community has any questions, they either, whichever platform is comfortable for them. Whether, we're getting questions via Facebook, via bitcointalk.org, Slack, Telegram, all these platforms, whichever is the most comfortable to you, just, hit us up. There won't be a single message that would be unanswered. We really want to communicate with the community, really help them out understanding the whole project, because it is a very technical solution, and it is, for some people, it may be hard to grasp from a few first seconds and understand the whole concept. But we're ready to help people make that happen. And as we help that happen, we also want to help merchants and really establish their reputation for it to be decentralized, and really also bringing in an efficient payment processor. This is as I'm talking to it, I'm stumbling on my words just because
take your time.
I'm so excited about this whole thing. And on behalf of all team, we're just saying, we're working hard on delivering everything that we say that we're going to deliver.
Sounds great, Justas. What you guys are doing sounds great, and I'm sure everyone in the YouTube investor community really appreciates the chance to hear from you. And going forward, I think we'll look forward to you have something like your week in review videos. And if you continue to do those, is that planned to continue to do those?
Yes, every week we're gonna just go through what we have done. It's an easy, digestible information. We do the updates in all the social media platforms for people to see the updates instantly. But for those who are love the video heads, we do a week in review every single week. And this week's is going to be super interesting. I'm going to tease your audience with that.
Great. There's so if you want to go ahead and let everyone know the URL of the home page, so that everyone has that handy. We'll put it in the description as well on the YouTube.
That's super easy. Monetha.io. I love the domain.
Yeah, that's
Monetha.io. By the way, Monetha is just a short plug what Monetha means, because not a lot of people recognize that.
Right.
But Monetha in Latin means money, and in Italian it means currency. So as we were looking at that beautiful word, we thought,
Monetha.
We saw the E and the T, and we said, hey, Ethereum, only acronym of Ethereum has an H, so we added an H, which we are big believers in Ethereum, and we're accepting Ether payments. That's why we incorporate ETH into our name.
That is clever.
So Monetha.io.
Great. And there is on YouTube, the Monetha channel is simply entitled Monetha, so folks can find that on YouTube. And the channel is growing. And one other thing I was interested to see is that your site has a Chinese version, and I'm wondering how is it that your project is interfacing and communicating with the Chinese investor base?
Oh, Chinese investors are really has been, a community that is showing a huge interest. We're getting a lot of emails, a lot of messages from them, and we said, where there is a demand, there will be a supply. So we definitely, think that it's mandatory to supply Chinese people with their own language to understand the project really clearly.
Yeah, indeed. That is really helpful. Are there any plans to bring in a Chinese speaker and have something like a Slack for Chinese speakers to join that's specifically presented on the Chinese version of the homepage, or what might be done?
So what we're doing with all the Chinese investors gather in WeChat, that has been also something that is really important in our whole philosophy. China will be one of the go-to markets of Monetha, just because there is no reason. It won't be a really hard job for us to educate Chinese people on mobile payments. They're already using that in a large scale.
Yeah.
So this is something that we're really looking forward to, and that's why any questions that Chinese people have on, they can just go to our WeChat, and we have a community manager that will communicate.
You have a community manager. Okay, Chinese. Yeah, because I was going to say, if you don't have a WeChat community manager for the Chinese investor base, then that would be something to address.
So, Mark, it has been already addressed.
Great. All right. Well, it looks like you guys are doing great. I'm sure the audience will be subscribing and very interested to see the further developments of your project. Justas, thanks so much for joining us on the channel. We appreciate the chance to do interviews with folks that are doing such exciting work. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for having me, and it was really a pleasure to speak with you. And you're really not a rookie, not a beginner in this. You really understand. I really like that you kind of grasp the whole technology and the whole value proposition of Monetha really easily. Yeah, let me just flash this.
Sure. Yeah, looks great. Yeah, thanks for saying so, Justas.
Hey, you're doing a great job as a host, Mark. So really, best of luck to you, and we'll try to communicate and let our audience and people know about the podcast, because it is, not a lot of people do these extensive interviews and really let people know about the technology, about the founders. And thank you. You were doing a great job in letting me navigate through the whole positive and the valuable things of Monetha.
Great. Glad to hear that, and thanks for saying so, Justas. Okay. Well, you have a great afternoon, and bye for now.
Best of luck. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.